Hey guys, it's Ken. I'm here with my partner and the president of our management company, Leslie Bryce.
Hi, Kenny.
How are you?
Good, you?
So this is the woman that makes me look good. So she's in charge of collecting rent for about 10,000 tenants each and every month. So obviously she's been kind of busy during this pandemic. But one of the things that is in the news all the time is this, rents, right? And evictions and all the pending evictions and all that kind of stuff. And it is going to be a mess, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So Leslie, of course, is tied into the local apartment association. She's on the board of the National Apartment Association. We're connected nationally. So landlords are working with their tenants all over the country. And so I wanted her to talk about this issue, to pay or not to pay, because we have an issue in our own company, but we are also connected with hundreds of other landlords that owns millions and millions of units across the country. And we're all trying to figure out best practices. But the main thing is that we're trying to work with all of our tenants, right?
Always. Yeah, it's been the most difficult part of the pandemic is to figure out how best to proceed. We're used to collecting rent every month.
Right. But, they sent everybody home and they're closing businesses.
Yep.
And these are people that are good people. They obviously submitted their application. They were stable when they moved in. Now they're going through some instability, obviously. We need money from the government to help, and all those things are on the table right now, and as we try to all navigate this. But what we have always tried to do from the beginning is to find some common ground with the landlords and the renters. In this case, that's us. That is the overriding issue. You're going to see some of this stuff on the internet and some of the stuff by the news and the media, with landlords that are, not doing things by the book. But unfortunately, that's always going to be the case no matter what industry is. But for the people that we're associated with, we're trying to figure out a way to keep people in their homes, reduce that stress and anxiety, and work together, right?
Absolutely. We, like you said, we approve people to move into our properties by qualifying them. And the last thing we want is another vacant apartment or to displace a resident. So we had to immediately launch into action when the moratorium went into effect and then got extended and extended and extended.
Right. So what we're going to kind of walk you through first is, I think that you guys probably know this. This is where everything's heading, guys. So if I own something and I've got the renter here, let's say, and they are going to pay here to the landlord, and then the landlord is going to pay the lender. So ultimately, this whole thing moves up. And eventually, like in 2008, if it doesn't, these homes, these apartments, these retail centers, these are all going to go back to the banks because almost all of them are financed. And the banks are going to file a default, and they're going to actually get that back as collateral to pay the loans. So that's what's happening. So when you see the media talk about, we need free rent, what that really means is that's all going to go back to the lenders, and the landlords are going to lose their money, of course. But then who knows what's going to happen to those properties and those renters, because they'll now no longer be managed by the landlord, and they'll potentially be managed by the banks, as an example. So this whole thing's a bit of a mess. And so what we're trying to do here is, how do you keep the renter in place? And we've come up with 5 things that we're doing as a company that we kind of wanted to share with you guys. And that's why we have Leslie here, because she's on the front line dealing with almost 10,000 people every single month and navigating this on multiple states and multiple cities.
Yeah, so we immediately had to launch into action and communication with the renters. That was one of the very first things that we had to start with, was talking to every renter to find out where they stood with paying their rent. A lot of people don't like to communicate, so it's for us, it's been the first step out of this issue of non-collection on the units.
So one of the things that you need to understand here is that the landlords do not want to evict you. They want to keep you. They want to work with you. No one wants to ruin your credit. But as you guys can see, what's happening is if the renter isn't paying the landlord, then the landlord's not paying the bank, and all that stuff's frozen right now. So all these things are gonna get really exposed here in the next, 8 to 9 months, in my opinion. You're gonna start to see. So if you're not communicating with your landlord also has to take a position as well.
Agreed. And so along with the communication, we knew we had to be more flexible with the payments. So creating a payment plan that would work for residents to start paying on a weekly basis or as they could. It was really important for us to see them provide some kind of olive branch to us to say, we're willing to pay, but we don't know how to pay. So setting up really flexible payment plans.
And that's fair. I mean, if they come in and say, listen, I'm sorry, I can't pay. But basically we sit down with them, right?
Right. No, it's really important for us to figure out what their particular needs are and really craft it according to each individual resident's needs.
Right. So we've done different things with different people, right? Because some have a family in there, some are single, some have roommates, some both have jobs and they got furloughed, some don't have any jobs at all. And so every scenario has been very different.
Well, and it could be because we weren't pursuing eviction. So it was just important to us to start bringing in some additional payments. But in addition to that, our really the third branch to this is pointing the residents in the direction of wherever there were resources.
So here's a good one, guys. So there are resources. One of the things as a landlord of a professionally managed company is we're actually an advocate for you. We're trying to figure out how to get you money. So why don't you talk about what we're doing at the national level, and at the state level, because we've won some real battles here in Arizona, and we've won some real battles nationally on getting resources to the residents, because obviously trying to navigate through the administration and try to get them to pass the next whatever act there has been horrible. So we've been doing it at the state level.
We have, both federally and at the state and local level. So we didn't stop just at what was being offered through the CDC or through the president. We started by looking there and then pointing residents to apply for assistance. When that started to run out, and during that time, we were also pointing them to local. Every municipality has a different program. And you can't stop looking for those. So we found them in the most interesting places. So sometimes it's the cities, sometimes it's the towns, sometimes it's just local affiliations. In San Antonio, for example, they had a really great program where we could capture 75% of the rent if we applied and the resident applied together for rent assistance.
So
but
think
we had
about
to
that.
waive 25%.
Think about this, guys.
Yeah.
Like literally, San Antonio came up with this incredible program. They said, hey, if we take 75% of the rent, but you co-apply, so we're working now with the resident because of the communication, and we've gotten thousands and thousands of dollars into our San Antonio properties that way.
We have, and those programs sometimes require that the landlord write off a portion of that rent to participate, and we were all for it in order to help the residents stay in place.
Right.
In terms of some of the programs that work the best, those are the ones we were able to apply for ourselves. So in Arizona, there was a rental property owners fund that Governor Ducey set up. He funded it with $650,000. We applied for it and got
$650 million.
$650 million, excuse me,
just
thousand.
just a couple zeros.
Million. But we were able to apply for it ourselves, and we were able to then get the money and apply it to the renters' balances, and it didn't require the residents to apply, but we did it on their behalf.
Right. So those are the kinds of things that if you're not doing, you got to make sure that your management company is doing. It's interesting. I was on a conversation with somebody the other day. Ironically, they had property in San Antonio, and I said, oh, they go, how you doing there? We're getting killed. And I said, well, we're using that 75% program through the city. He's like, what are you talking about? He didn't even know. This is a landlord. So the stuff's out there, guys. You have to be digging for it. You have to be involved. You have to be involved in your local associations. You have to be involved at a level because people are helping out right now, right?
Between churches and other community action centers, we found money for residents all over the place.
And you want a renter for life, this is how you do it. You help them out, you work on the resources that are available, and there's a lot out there.
For sure.
Yep. All right, so now number 4, let's talk about the CDC, right? So because those are different, right? Requirements. So these have actual applications and things they have to sign under the penalty of perjury,
That's
right?
right.
So let's walk through that.
So it's an attestation that each resident would have to apply for to avoid eviction. The moratorium was a complete shutdown of no evictions for a period of time, but as legislation changed, it was required then for residents to have to apply and attest that under perjury, that they actually had a COVID-related hardship. They were required to look for assistance, and they were also required to attest that they would otherwise be homeless. So we're not seeing a lot of these attestations within our communities because of how much we're communicating with them. But when this change happened, it was really important for us to communicate all of the laws related to this. It's a lot to manage.
It is.
Every single resident who was late, we've had to communicate with and make sure that they were following all the guidelines to avoid eviction. For fair housing purposes, if somebody's delinquent and the moratoriums change, we have to follow those rules. But if we're accepting partial payments, it allows us to abate that. If somebody attests to the CDC requirements and can stay away from being evicted that way, we're following it to the letter, but our hope is to point them toward all of the resources so that they can make up those payments and stay in place.
Right, right. Of course, that's what we want, right? So let's talk about number 5. One of the things that we've been able to do is we've been able to work with tenants on actually doubling them up, actually moving them into downsizing. So, so we'll say double up and downsize, right? So let's talk about that.
Well, because we offer so many apartment unit types in our regions and at our properties, these floor plans make it a lot easier for us to get folks into maybe a rent that's a little bit more affordable. Many people have gone on to get jobs again, or even if they haven't, they have an opportunity to pay less in a smaller unit. So it gives us that flexibility to keep them there.
Right,
and,
right.
And
And then, of course, on the
pay.
roommate side of things, just like they do at universities, people are always looking for roommates. We open that up too, because there are people within our same community that are hurting, and they might even be next door to each other or just across the courtyard. And so that's another thing that we've been working to do. But it all starts here. It all starts here by saying, hey, we have an issue, we can't pay, and it all starts with working with the management company and trying to figure out multitude of solutions, right? But the whole point here, guys, is that you need to look for these as a landlord to help your residents, because if they can stay in their place and reduce that anxiety and that stress, and then that will reduce yours as you attempt to work with your lenders and hopefully keep the building, and hopefully we can all get through this period of time. These vaccines will come in and things will kind of get back to normal. But the whole point is to keep your renters in place and also to somehow keep your property so that the lender doesn't take it. So thanks for listening. Leslie, thank you.
Thank you.